What is up, guys? Shane from Wrestle Wellbeing here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Unseen Battles, where today I'm joined by a man whose career is a masterclass in resilience. Hailing from the gritty rings of UKW, our guest today is a veteran who proved that it's never too late to chase a dream. Known across the independent circuit as the WildCard, he has built a legacy on stepping up for the underdog and taking down those who think they can push others around. He is a former two-time UKW around-the-clock champion, a former UKW Academy champion, former UKW hardcore champion, and the inaugural NSAW world-class champion, and very recently a former UKW tag team champion. Whether he's wielding the dream ticket or putting opponents away in a submission match, he remains one of the most unpredictable athletes in the business today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Unseen Battles. Please welcome to Wrestle Wellbeing, the man who lives by the code of step up or step aside, Mr. Tommy Dillon. Tommy, thank you so much for joining me, man.
Yes, thank you. I'm very humbled by that entire intro right there. I'm blushing, really.
Absolutely fantastic, mates. First of all, Tommy, how are you?
I'm good, yeah. I mean, I just recently turned 43, so not getting older, just getting better.
You don't as
I always say, never complain about getting older because some people don't have that chance.
Absolutely, my friend. So, Tommy, to jump straight into the questions, what initially drew you to professional wrestling? Has it always been a childhood dream of yours, or is it something that you sort of discovered later on in life?
Well, going way, way back to 1991, I watched my first wrestling event, which was SummerSlam 91. I was 8 years old, and I just fell in love with it right away. And, it was still during that time of the, is it real, is it not real situation. And then, obviously, when it got brought out as sports entertainment, a lot of people that I knew turned on it. But to me, it just made it even better for me because now there were no limits to it. It just made it something that I could really get into without any limits to it. And I'd been a fan of it for years. I'd always had those fantasies of becoming a wrestler, fighting some of the best. But, as I got older, I fell into that whole get a job, 9 to 5 sort of thing. And it was when I was 32. It was a year after my wife and my grandmother had passed away. And it was coming up to the anniversary of my wife's passing that I saw this advert for a wrestling school in Wakefield. It's called Wrestling Warehouse. And I just thought, you know what? I don't want to be, on my deathbed and thinking to myself, I wish I'd done that. So even if it's just I'd do the training and nothing comes of it, at least I tried. So I went to it and I've just been stuck there ever since. And when I say stuck there, I mean happily stuck there. I'm there because I love it so much.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, myself, Liam from Magic Wrestling, and my wife Shannon first came to watch you at UKW WrestleBration Aftermath last year. And what we saw, when it got to the end of the match that you had, myself and Liam looked at each other and said, Tommy really is a really big technical masterclass in that ring. It's like,
thank you.
It's just it was a joy to watch you in the ring, man. Is it something that is there a specific wrestler that you used to watch that you kind of like modeled your career around?
Well, talking about that match in particular, I was against George Hunter, who is just a phenomenal athlete himself. So he really brings out the best in everyone he gets in ring with. But in terms of my interest, obviously when I was a kid, 1991, when I first started, Hulk Hogan was the big thing. But I got drawn into matches like, Bret Hart and the British Bulldog and Mr. Perfect. So, I love that kind of technical wrestling. As time went on, my favorite was always The Undertaker because even though as big as he was, he could go, he had that technical style to him when he needed it. And, then came along guys like Triple H, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, who had that, they could go. But at the same time, they could also brawl as well. And, as I say about there being no limits to the storytelling, they really brought it out. And that's always what got me. That's why I think that's why I got more into the Attitude Era than any other era.
Absolutely, bud. So can you describe to us what your first training experience like when you went to the UK Wrestling Academy?
Oh, God. Well, my actual first training experience was at the Wrestle Warehouse before I went to UKW. And well, I was 32 years old. I went in. There was, I think, 5 other trainees there, and only one of them was older than me. And he'd been doing it a while at that point. The main trainer there was 19. And the other trainees, they were aging between 8 and 12. So, yeah, I felt out of place. I felt like I could easily stink this place up. But I thought, I'm not going to try and impress anybody. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to listen. I'm going to do as I'm told. And, unfortunately, when that place closed down, I'd already been to a couple of UKW shows. And I believe I'd actually been to an open day there at UKW one time, which was, it was nice because, the guys there, they were very welcoming. When I went there full time, the first session there, again, it was people between 10 and 20 years younger than me. And as I say, they were welcoming. They were just like, come on in, don't be afraid. How long you been doing this? What's your style? What's your character? And just tell us about yourself, that sort of thing. And as I say, when it came to the training, I was just like, I'm just here to listen. I'm here to learn. You tell me to do something, I'll do it. And when I feel that I'm ready to spark out on my own and do my own thing, then I'll do that. But for now, I'm going to follow whatever I'm told to do.
Fantastic, mate. So what was it like when you first took that bump? Because I've had quite a lot of mixed reactions to this question.
Right. The first time I took a bump, I was one of the lucky ones because at the Wrestle Warehouse, we did it on crash mats the first time to try and get us into it. The first time I took it without a crash mat, it was a flip bump that I did. First bump I did without a crash mat. I landed and it felt like my chest had exploded. It was just like, boom. I was like, I should have done this first.
Absolutely. I think that basically sums up the majority of the responses to that question when I ask it to the people. So what would you say was the best advice that your trainer gave you when you started wrestling?
Best advice I got. It got said to me on my first day in at UKW. It was my first day, and I was nervous. But like I said, I'd already made my mind up. I was just there to listen and to take it all in. And that's what that was what they said to me on the first day. It's just like, don't panic, don't try too hard. Just go at your own pace and listen to what they tell you to do, and you'll be fine.
Fantastic, brilliant. So, when you went for your first training session at UKW, who was the trainer at the time? Was it Jonathan? Was it Mustafa? Was it Joe? Was it someone else?
The trainer at the time, I mean, Joe was only a very young lad at the time. But the first trainer I had at UKW was called Danny Steele. And he was a very, how can I put this? A very animated kind of guy, very serious about wrestling. He took it very seriously, the training and that. He'd push us in the warm-ups and all that. But he was a very animated guy. If you got him laughing, he had this really high-pitched kind of laugh. And if you could catch him off guard, you'd corpse him right there. He'd just be laughing and he would not stop. But yeah, like I say, I could always take him seriously, even when he was, he could joke around, but I could always take him seriously because he had a real respect and a real serious idea of what wrestling should be.
Absolutely, mate. So, like I say, came to watch you at WrestleBration Aftermath. Later, watched you at Showcase Champions as well. Whenever I've seen clips of you on YouTube as well, on UKW's YouTube channel, make sure you go check it out, guys. It seems as though you are very versatile with the opponents that you face. You could face a George Hunter one week, a Joe Sedgwick the next week, Mustafa Khan the week after, Johan Hunt the week after. It seems as though it's very, very difficult for you to have a bad match, if that's right in saying. Every match that you are in is always a very, very good match. Is that something that you sort of like pride yourself on?
Well, I'd like to say that is down to me. That is mostly down to my opponents. I've been lucky to have some very talented opponents to go against. Um, yeah, I mean, it's good that a lot of my matches do come out as being, even if they're not brilliant, they still measure up. They're still good matches, and I'm very proud of that because when I first started, my very first match, I stunk the place up. I really did. I did not know where to put myself. I did not know where to stand. I was messing up moves. I was just lost. And to come from that and be able to come back with my head held up and be able to say, no, I'm going to improve on this. And now we're like, what, nearly 11 years down the line with still having good matches and being able to stand toe to toe with guys like Hunter and Joe, Johan and Mustafa Khan. I had a great match with him at Kirkwood Hospice show this year, and also at Rebound. We had the first ever Wildcard rules match, and which ironically was the first time I've ever actually faced Mustafa Khan in the whole 12 years that I've known him. And oh god, I am very happy with the fact that my matches do come off so well. But as I say, I put that more as an example of the people I'm with, because they want it to be a great match as well. They want it to stand out, and they're so open to trying new things.
Absolutely, bud. So, obviously, as you mentioned, you're quite open to trying new things with new opponents, sort of thing. What has been the most outlandish, insane request that someone has asked of you?
Oof. It's funny, because a lot of times that I've worked with people, they don't, when they have suggestions, it's mostly suggestions for themselves. They'll never suggest that I put myself on the line. It'll always be, if we do this, I'll do it because it's my idea. I don't want to put you out there. It's going into WrestleBration with Danny Missing. There were a lot of things we did in that where I said to him, we'll do, if you do this, then do the moonsault onto me. He's just like, oh, I've never actually done a moonsault as a move. I've always done it onto a lot of people. I'm like, dude, I trust you. You can do it. And I think that's what it has to be more than anything. You have to be able to trust the person, but at the same time, you have to be realistic, because you can't go into a situation where you want it to be good, but the person you're working with is not ready. Because I have seen that from other guys when I've trained at other places. There've been guys that have said, oh yeah, we're going to do this, this, and this in this match. And I'll just say to him, no, you can't do that with him because he's not ready. He's never tried that before. He wouldn't know where to land. And I would always, and yeah, obviously I'm not going to say that all the time. That's if we get to show day and they're saying we're going to do this. It's just no, you need to train that first. And as I say, I have been lucky in the sense. I mean, I remember the first time Joe Sedgwick gave me that move of his where he's sat on the top turnbuckle and he picks you up in a fisherman suplex and turns you, slams you on the floor. First time we did that, I was worried, not so much that he couldn't do it, because I'd seen him do it with everybody. I was worried I was going to sandbag him and that both of us would end up falling out at ring or something. But we did it perfect the first time we tried it. And it's stuff like that just opens me up to the idea that I've got a lot more to offer than my brain will let me think.
Absolutely, bud. So, as someone that's 11 years into the business, do you find yourself? Do you find a lot of the other wrestlers rather coming up to you for advice at all? Maybe someone that, if they're new to UKW, they might come up to you and say, I need your help with this match. I need your help with this. What sort of things do you get asked about?
Yeah, I do get that a lot from the newbies. Because they've got to. They've got to be open to asking questions and that sort of thing. So when somebody new comes into the academy, first thing I do is I'm straight up to them, hold my hand out. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Tommy Dillon. you need any help, I'm here for you. And I always try and be friendly with everyone because because they're always going to need help. And when we've got an open ring, I'll say to them, is there anything you want to try? Is there anything you've seen that you maybe want to try out? And I'll always be open to helping them, which is how everyone should be. When you've got this kind of like experience, in my case, 11 years, in other people's cases, more than that. I mean, Mustafa Khan, it's like 20 years. And Jonathan Sedgwick around about the same thing. And it's just a situation of you've got to be open to helping these guys, because in the end, these guys are going to help you put on a great show. I mean, when I first met Buckshot Buckley, he was so timid about what he could and couldn't do. But then he would pull off stuff like a shotgun drop kick, and we'd be like, dude, you've got it. Have a bit of faith in yourself. So, I'd always be there for him, and I'd say, if there's anything you want to try out, I'm here for you. And, sometimes things have gone wrong. I mean, I remember recently we were doing a move and I threw my leg up a bit too far. I think we were trying a crucifix. I threw my leg up and my knee caught him on his thumb, which, not the most pleasant of experiences. But, these things happen. At the same time, it didn't shatter his confidence or anything. He's still there. He's still going. And he's doing really well for himself. I'm very proud of him.
Absolutely, mate. Big shout out to Buckshot Buckley, guys. Make sure you go check Buckshot out as well. Would you ever see yourself becoming a trainer at all, Tommy, at UKW? Obviously, you've got a wealth of knowledge. Would you ever consider throwing your name towards Jonathan to possibly become a trainer?
Well, I have led a couple of sessions there before, because we have it open to the idea that any of the wrestlers that have got that knowledge and got that experience can get in there. It's like I've led sessions, Sebastian Mercer's led sessions, Cliff Harrison, Evan Knight. It's in the case of like Evan Knight and Sebastian Mercer, they've been doing it for between like 4 and 5 years. But they've got that knowledge because they've been around the country and actually gone to other places and learned other things from different trainers. So they bring that back to UKW, and it's good to pass that on to the next generation, as it were. But yeah, I mean, I've done training sessions at UKW. I also was the head trainer up at Nonstop Action Wrestling when that was still open. And yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. If I'm absolutely honest with this situation, it can be frustrating as a trainer because, if you get too friendly with everybody, you get the odd person here and there that will not take it seriously because they'll just be thinking, oh, I can just fob this off, but I'm friends with upper management trainers and I can just get in the ring. It's not that easy. If you can't go in the ring, then people aren't going to want to work with you. And yeah, they'll be afraid of you getting hurt. So you will end up getting avoided on that spot. And it is a shame because there are certain people who have had that kind of attitude that I've seen, not at UKW, but at other places and like on shows. And I've just seen that, yeah, they've got that potential, but they just need to like dial the ego back.
Absolutely, Tommy, mate. So across your illustrious 11-year career so far, what would you say have been some of the most memorable moments or matches?
Well, my number one memorable moment will always be the first Wrestling for Kirkwood, which was a show that obviously I came up with, I hosted. It was in honor of my wife who passed away because she passed away at the Kirkwood Hospice. So putting that together and having everybody come along and make it special, I mean, that's great. The fact that we're coming up to the 6th one of those later this year, that'll always be special for me. My first title obviously was special, winning the Academy title. I mean, the funny thing about that, and I only started being honest about this a few years ago, was when I won I came in with the idea of I'll do some training. Then it became I want to have a match. Then it became I want to win a title. As soon as I won the Academy title, I was like, you know what? I've lived the dream. I can walk away. So I said to myself, didn't say to anybody else, but I said to myself, once I lose the Academy title, I'm done. I'll just leave. And it was halfway through the match with LRB. It was a no disqualification match. And he picked me up for a suplexed me onto a bin. But the bin was in a bad way. So, like, the edge of it at the bottom went right into my back. But the thing is, I was in agony, but I was happy. And I was just like, you know what? I'm never leaving. I'm never leaving. I love wrestling. I'm never leaving. Even if I spend the rest of my career just losing matches now, I'm never leaving. So, yeah, that'll always be a top point for me.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. So, guys, as you heard Tommy mention Kirkwood Hospice, I've put a link down to their website in the description below. Make sure you go check that out, guys, please. Also, later on this year, myself and Liam from Magical Wrestling, we will be going back to UKW in Batley to hopefully do some live reactions of the Kirkwood event that Tommy is hosting later this year. Do you want to just quickly plug that event, Tommy?
Oh, absolutely, yes. It's called Wrestling for the Kirkwood Support Life Revolution. It's the 6th time we've done this, following Wrestling for Kirkwood Hospice in memory of Carrie Ann, Wrestling for Kirkwood Hospice 2, the memory remains. Then it was Wrestling for the Kirkwood Support Life, Wrestling for Kirkwood Support Life 4, Let Them Know, and obviously last year's Wrestling for the Kirkwood Support Life High Five. Yeah, I've already got a few matches set for this. It'll be myself taking on Death Row, my arch nemesis, in our final encounter. I've also got some championships coming in on this, because last year we crowned the undisputed NSAW World Class Champion with Remus Kane and Disciple. So Remus Kane will be defending that title this year. I also created a match last year called Undisputed Gladiator. That'll be getting returned. And more than anything, it's just great to support the Kirkwood, because, I mean, the lady who I was in touch with on the first one, she said at the first show, she said a lot of people have the wrong impression of what the hospice is like. Some people will look at it as being quite a morbid thing, and, you know, but you go there, it's such a beautiful place, it's such a great atmosphere. These people that are there, the patients, they're treated so brilliantly, they've got the dignity, and they really get that care of life. And a lot, you know, they have saved lives there as well. I mean, that is something that you very rarely hear about it, but it is true. So, yeah, please come down to that. It's November 7th at the UKW Arena in Batley. It's a £5 entry fee, which goes straight to the Kirkwood. There's also going to be raffle and auctions, and yeah, every penny goes to Kirkwood. We've actually got people from Kirkwood there that will take it straight into the bucket. Because that's something I've always said, which is probably me being a bit paranoid, but I've always said I want people from the Kirkwood to be there to take the money, so that I'm not saying to everybody, give me the money and I'll give it to them. No, I want it to be straight there, straight honest. You know, the money is going straight to them.
Absolutely fantastic, bud. So yeah, guys, make sure you go check out Kirkwood Hospice in the description down below. Also, if you go onto Tommy's Instagram page, remember, follow the QR code above my head. All the information is on there. There's posters from previous years and everything like that. So make sure you go check that out. It's a fantastic cause, a fantastic event. It's going to be an absolute brilliant card. So, Tommy, to carry on,
I've also got the flag right here.
Yeah, of course, mate. There you go, guys.
On here, but
Wrestle for the Kirkwood. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that'll be flying high at the next show, as it was at the last one.
Fantastic, mate. Absolutely fantastic. It's absolutely brilliant that you've been able to do this event for quite a number of years, obviously in memory of your late wife. So I mentioned when I introduced you about the numerous titles that you've won over your career so far. How would you say that you prepare for such a big match like that, both physically and mentally?
Well, physically, I just have to make sure I'm able to stand up with the guy that I'm in the ring with. Like, for instance, when I did the NSAW World Class title, it was a one-night tournament. It was 3 rounds, and I was against guys like Billy O'Keefe and J.Ro Lewis. Now, if you know anything about them, J.Ro Lewis, I've had some great matches with him. He's a scrappy little bugger, but he's great to work with, and he always brings out the best in me. Billy O'Keefe is arguably one of the best athletes that I've ever seen. I would put him on the same tier as someone like Leon Slater, who I also used to train with as well. Sorry, Leon, for dropping that. But yeah, I would put him up there. He really brings out the best in everyone. So really, that's the way I look at it. If I'm winning a title, it's got to be a situation where the audience can buy into me being a champion, and also that we do a match that is worthy of the title of being a championship match. So I do like to make sure that I'm in good shape for that, and make sure that I've got my cardio up. At the same time, I want to do some stuff that I haven't done in other matches, so that it really stands out that bit more. Because I mean, every wrestler has their move set. I know some wrestlers don't like that term, but it is true. They all have the move sets, and I have mine. But at the same time, I like being the wild card, living Umbereckenbar. I like to actually throw something new in there every now and again, so that people can just say, "Wow, I hadn't seen him do that before." Just a way of actually keeping everyone on the toes.
Absolutely, mate. So if you were to do one wrestling move that you've not done yet, what would it be?
Oh God! Oh, one wrestling move I haven't done yet. I've done quite a few. I mean, I would love to do a moonsault. I used to be able to do them in training, on a crash mat. I've never actually tried it in a match, because that's it's really all up here. Because I think the last time I tried it in training on a crash mat, I missed the crash mat. So I mean, I didn't hurt myself, so I was all right. But the fact was, all I could think to myself was, if I'd done that to somebody in a match, I would have landed on the head, and I don't want to do that. So, and I actually had that last WrestleBration when Danny Missing did the moons. He put the bin on my head, then did the moonsault and landed right on the bin, which was on my head. So, I mean, luckily I had an adrenaline rush going at that point, so it didn't hurt too bad. But I mean, I would love to be able to do a moonsault. A guy who's been recently training for a moonsault is Cliff Harrison, and he's got it near perfect. I can't wait for him to actually unveil that in a match.
Absolutely, bud. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of hoping that you were going to say a Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah, I think years ago I would have loved to do a Canadian Destroyer. I do feel like that's a move that's been really diluted over the years, to the point where it's like so many people are using it as like a signature. And when people do a move like that and the person that's just been done to get right back up and comes back with a knee, it's like, right, the move doesn't really mean much anymore when that keeps happening. But I mean, Canadians to Destroy is a great move, but as I say, I think it's just been diluted.
I have to agree with you there, buddy. So how would you say that your wrestling style has evolved since you first started?
When I first started, I wanted to do every move. I wanted to do every move possible in every match. When I finally calmed down a bit and I realized less is more, I went more into like a brawler type of character, because I was still a heel at the time. When I finally got the chance to be a babyface, which happened by total accident, when I finally got that, I decided to throw it up a bit more, get a bit more technical, get some more submission moves in there. And that's when I started creating the Kiara lock, which is my submission move. My submission finisher, I should say. And that's really where it's all come from. It's like I like to just throw a little bit extra on it every time, even if I don't use it all the time. My main style will always be a brawler, because I can change that however I need. But I love to be technical. I love to get the odd high flying move in. And submissions always a favorite for me. I love to learn new submissions. In terms of in the ring, though, I'll always be a brawler. But keep an eye out, because there'll always be something different to pop up.
Absolutely. So last question before we go on to the Instagram question and then into the next part of the show. If you could add one submission to your repertoire, what would it be and why?
Oh, what submission? I always liked Ricky's the Dragon Steamboat when he did the double arm chicken wing. When it would like get, I think it now gets used as like a, I don't want to say Black Widow, but I think Victoria used it as like a slam. But yeah, it would get it defeated Ric Flair with it a couple of times. He'd get both arms and he'd like lift him up and just let him basically submit up there. So I always thought that'd be a cool move to use. But it's a question of actually, getting with the right person to do it. Because obviously I couldn't do that to say Buckshot Buckley. But someone like Chris Mason, I could do it to. And I know that he's always up for trying new things. But I do like the sharpshooter, but I don't want to steal Jonathan Sedgwick's thunder because he loves the sharpshooter. But I mean, the sharpshooter was grandfather to the Kiara lock because that's how I always set it up. I set it up like a sharpshooter and then turn it around into a crossface. So yeah, I mean that's a great move. I'd like to see the sleeper hold come back because you don't see that apart from like say Gunther. I know he uses it as his finisher, but you don't see many people using it in the style of like say a Roddy Piper would have used it. Because I do remember Roddy Piper slapping it on someone one time and like laying them down and pinning them with it, and it was just like, hang on, he just pinned him with a sleeper hold. And it's stuff like that I would love to, get a move that seems like one thing but turn it into another.
Absolutely, mate. So, got an Instagram question here from Mr. Joe Sedgwick.
Yeah, my trainer.
And Joe asks, if you could win only one championship at UKW, which would it be and why?
Joe, you know the answer to this, you cheeky monkey. It is the UKW World Heavyweight Championship because honestly, that belt was all I wanted when I started wrestling. When I first started training, that was my my motivation. I looked to that title. Obviously, it was a different design to what it is now, but yeah, I've always wanted to be face of UKW. I've always wanted to be the UKW World Heavyweight Champion. And yeah, I want, in terms of why, like I say, I want to be the face of the company. I want to be the leader of the company. And I want to be able to say that hard work does pay off. And if I can reach that point, if I can get myself to that point where the audience can believe in me enough, whether they hate me so much as a villain or they love me so much as a babyface, if I can get to that point where they can believe me as the World Heavyweight Champion, I would be happy with my career after that. But it would definitely be the UKW World Heavyweight Championship because, as I said, that title was my main focus when I first came into the business.
Fantastic, mate.
So listen up, Joe, and get that sorted.
Fantastic, mate. So thank you so much, Joe, for sending your question. So guys, if you do want to ask Tommy a question, make sure you put it in the chat below. Also, make sure you mention it in the comments as well. If it's okay with you, Tommy, we'll move on to the mental health questions.
Of course, yeah.
Back in 2 seconds, guys. So, Tommy, mate, to start us off with this second part of the interview, what is your biggest fear?
Ooh, my biggest fear. Well, in terms of actual phobias, I've always had nightmares about sharks. It's always been a recurrent nightmare since I was a child, being stuck underwater and having a big ship coming towards me. In terms of like realistic kind of fears, I don't want to say I'm paranoid, but I believe what they call it is imposter syndrome, where you feel like you're just not worthy enough. I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And that is one of my worst fears, is that I'll never really achieve anything because I always look down on myself.
Okay, mate. So, can you explain to us when you first started experiencing your struggles with mental health as well as with imposter syndrome?
Right. Right. Well, if I can go back far enough, when I was at school, I was very lonely. I had a bit of a hermit complex. I didn't have many friends. I didn't go out to parties or anything like that. I used to just sit at home watching television, and I would go to school, and I was different to the other kids. I wasn't into the same stuff as them. They were all into football. I wasn't, and that really pushed me out. So obviously, that's never good for anybody to feel like they're alone. I became a bit of a class clown as like a defense mechanism for that. And I do remember when I was 17, 18, I was at college, and I was down at the pub with a friend of mine, and we were just having a drink and that, and I started to talk really seriously. I dropped the laughing mood, and I just started to talk really seriously about how I was feeling. And she turned to me and just went, "Oh, Dom, don't do that. That's weird. You're supposed to be the funny one. I don't like it when you're being serious." So that made me really retreat back into myself. If my friend was willing to say that to me, so yeah, that really made me retreat back into myself. And I'd really just got over having a really bad temper that I had at school. And I moved on. I got to, as I say, the 9 to 5 jobs, just handling things as I could. I would say when the mental health really struck me, it was when my nana and my wife passed away in 2014, because I never really got the chance to grieve because I had 3 children and I really had to be there for them. So it was hard for me to really vocalize about how I was feeling and really let it out there, because I needed to be strong for them. And getting into wrestling, obviously that helped me. It helped me, let things out and, enjoy my life and that. Not that I wasn't enjoying my life already. I love my children, I love my friends. But at the same time, there was a part of me that just needed to be let out. And wrestling really helped me with that. And I've, I won't say that, it's made life perfect every single day. But at the same time, at least I know that I can talk to people now. I can let things out, and I do work in wrestling. I have worked with a lot of people that have suffered their own mental health crisis, so I'm able to really talk candidly with them. I mean, what was it? A couple of years ago, I had a podcast of my own that I started that I really should get back to, called Tales of Umbereckenbar. The episodes are available on Spotify, and they're also on my YouTube page. And there were a couple of people, I'm not going to name them here because I don't want to be name dropping, but they did talk very openly about their mental health issues on those. So that was very inspiring for me. And I mean, there are times, as I say, with the imposter syndrome, it comes from the simple fact that really, when it comes to like wrestling, I should have started years ago. When I first got into it, when I left school, I should have just got into it and, really pushed where the fantasy was going. But at the same time, I held back because I didn't really believe that someone like me should get that. Because too many people say stuff like that, don't they? They always say, it doesn't happen to normal people. But then, I mean, one of the things I read a few years back, I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography. And, he was always the one that people would always say to me, "Oh, yeah, he's a star, but it doesn't happen to normal people." But he grew up in post-war Austria. He's a poor boy living in post-war Austria, and now look at him. So, it's all about, the work you put in, the belief you have in yourself. And that's really where I faltered, because I didn't really have that belief in myself. Because for instance, when I was back at school, it'd say I would be in like an art lesson, and I'd be painting something, and someone would come up to me and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And, I would, in the back of my mind, I would think, they're going to make fun of me. So I would make fun of myself first. And I'd just be like, oh, it's rubbish. And then they'd look at it and they'd say, oh yeah, it is rubbish. And it's like, well, there you go. I just saved myself some pain. But did I save myself some pain, or did I just add to it? So it's one of those things that your mental health will always have those moments. I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I say that my mental health is worse than anybody else's, because I know people that have had really, really bad times and really faced very extreme situations. So I'll never compare myself to them, but at the same time I will say that your mental health will never be 100%, but keep an eye on it and really look after yourselves, and get that help, talk to people when you need to, because I'd much rather you get your life saved and you see another day and be able to talk about these things than just hold it in and try to be brave. The true bravery is really letting it out and being able to speak to someone about it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, mate. Could not agree more. So, guys, if you are struggling with your mental health for whatever reason it may be, or you're struggling with any mental vices such as addiction, things like that, make sure you check out the description below. I've put in a lot of links to mental health organisations, including one that's very close to myself, Andy's Man Club, also Mind Charity as well. There's also links for addiction, also suicide prevention charities down in the link, down in the description below. So, Tommy, alongside imposter syndrome, is there any other specific challenges related to mental health that you faced whilst wrestling? I've got a couple of examples for you, bud. Performance anxiety, pressure, travel, body imagery, and social media scrutiny. Do any of those sort of like relate to you?
Definitely body image has been a thing with me. I mean, I've been working out a lot more over the last year and a half, but but that's always been a thing for me, and I think that's really that's really the reason why I started to work out as much as I did a year and a half ago, is because for so long I was kind of just in a situation where I was kind of just lying to myself and just saying, "Oh, I don't care how I look. If people don't like it, that's their problem." But the fact was, you can't go by what other people say, because if you're just trying to go against them, that's not going to get you anywhere. At the same time, you've got to, if you do feel that, like you said, the body image thing, it's got to be how you see it. And frankly, I did see it, and I lied to myself for so long. And I just thought, right, I'm not gonna push myself to this point where I worry so much about it that I end up doing something drastic, but I can do something about it. It's when I took a few years ago, I took up DDP yoga, which really helped me a lot, and I had to give that up because I couldn't afford the monthly subscription. But I remembered the exercises, and I do still do it. And as I say, the exercise that I've been doing to try and get my body in shape, that's for me. That's not for anybody else. That is for me. That's because of how I want to feel in myself, not how I want other people to view me. In terms of travel, I mean, I'm a terrible traveler. I always have been. I do like to travel with the guys at wrestling. I've traveled with such as like Remus Kane, and it's great to have that kind of chitter chatter as you're driving down somewhere. I mean, but it does take just the tiniest thing to really drop your mentality, as it were, about that. Like, for instance, when I was driving to Hull one time, I had Remus Kane, Owen Carter, KT Gold, and Rob Bagwell in the car, and my clutch broke. So we had to pull up. We're like 15 minutes away from where we were. I had to tell them that, right, I've got to stay with car until AA shows up, and I really felt like I'd let them down. They had to get a taxi rest away. And stuff like that. As sad as it seems, because people can say all they want about they're not superstitious, but stuff like that happens, and you do start to think, am I cursed? But yeah, I mean that the travel thing has always been an issue for me. I'm not a very good traveler. What was the other one that you mentioned?
Performance anxiety, pressure,
Performance
and social
anxiety.
media
Yeah,
scrutiny.
yeah. Performance anxiety. That's always a thing because, as I say, I mean, I'm looking at guys like I say, George Hunter, Joe Sedgwick, Sebastian Mercer, Cliff Harrison. And these are great athletes that I know, and I trust them. I know they're not going to get in ring with me and try and make me look foolish. I know they're not going to try and undermine me or anything like that. But at the same time, I want to be on their level and be able to give them the match that they deserve. So yeah, performance anxiety is always a thing. I can't speak for every other wrestler, but it's definitely a thing for me.
Absolutely, mate. So, has there been any particular moments or periods in your career so far where your struggles have felt particularly overwhelming at all?
I do remember, I think it was WrestleBration 10. This was probably when I really felt the imposter syndrome. It was WrestleBration 10. I had been at training the day before and I twisted my knee. And I stayed over at a friend's house that night. I was walking to the venue the night before. Stayed at my friend's house the night before. The day of the show, I was walking to the venue and I just had this thought that I really wasn't feeling it. I just was not feeling that usual feeling I have before a show where I'm excited. I wasn't excited. I didn't like the match that I was in. I wasn't feeling like the show needed me in any way. And it did come to my mind, would they miss me if I rang them up right now and just said, look, my legs hurts, I can't make it. I had the excuse right there, but I thought to myself, if I do that, I'll keep doing it. And I can't be in that situation. This is something that I really want to do, and I don't want to give up on it just for a moment of doubt in myself. So yeah, I made the choice to actually go to that show that day, and I spoke to the booker and I just said, look, give me a storyline, just give me something to sink my teeth into, because I've got so much more to offer. Just give me something. And it was I would say that was the best decision that I made in that case, because if I had have gone with the initial instinct and said, hello, no, I can't make it, that would have probably been it for me. I just kept making excuses because I wouldn't have been able to look anybody in the eye after that.
Absolutely, bud. So when these struggles are feeling particularly overwhelming, whether it be at training, whether it be at a show, what sort of coping mechanisms have you found most effective?
I find writing helps for me. I do like to write stories, the more just for me. I don't like publishing or anything like that, but yeah, I do like writing. I like talking as well. I love talking to people, so I will approach like my friends and other wrestlers, and just, even if I don't want to talk about the problems that I'm having, I'll talk about something. I mean, I could sit down and have like a long chin wag with someone like Mustafa Khan, and we'll just talk about anything. We can talk about his acting career. We can talk about stuff that's on telly or stuff that's going on in world. It's just a way of like getting my mind to focus on something instead of really worrying over the stuff that I'm worried about. And it's difficult because as I mentioned earlier about what happened to me at college, when that friend of mine said that she didn't want to hear about it, I mean, that does still buzz in the back of my mind every now and again, and I do wonder, am I putting somebody out by telling them my problems? Am I burdening them? Which I do feel is something that a lot of people can probably relate to.
Absolutely, mate. And I am one of those as well that feels that exact same way, bud. So when you have these feelings of inadequacy and feelings though you're putting people out, do you have a support system at all that you rely on both within and outside of wrestling?
Honestly, no, I do not. It's not something that I've looked into, but I mean, I should. I do, and like I say, I mean, I do have my friends. I've got my best friend who I can always speak to. I've got my fiance who will listen to anything I say. My kids, they're a lot older now, so they're willing to actually sit down and listen to it. I do remember, as you mentioned earlier, about Andy's Man Club. I mean, I considered going there one time, and I haven't. So I probably should have done, but I've spoken to a lot of people that have gone there, and the work that they do is amazing. And maybe one day I will find myself through those doors. But yeah, I mean, that's a great support system to have. In my case, my support system is just my close friends and my family.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. You mentioned Andy's Man Club. I would massively vouch for Andy's Man Club. I myself, if I could just talk about myself very briefly. A couple of years ago, I tried to take my own life and I saw no way out, sort of thing. It's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because obviously, being a big wrestling fan since I was very young, and also a big advocate for men's mental health in particular, but mental health in its entirety. I felt as though wrestlers didn't have this sort of outlet, sort of thing. I attended my first Andy's Man Club session, and I went with the mentality of, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit there and listen. As soon as I held that ball, I did what I like to call verbal diarrhea, and I just spilled everything, and it was the best thing I could do. So I would massively recommend it, bud.
Yeah, once you get talking and you just let it all out, it really does help, doesn't it?
Absolutely, bud. Absolutely. So for anyone that's watching, Tommy, whether they are a wrestler, a fan, or just someone that's stumbled across this podcast randomly, what message would you give to that person who is struggling with their mental health and feels though they are unable to open up?
I would say to them, don't be ashamed of it. Do not be ashamed of the fact that you're struggling, because people struggle and you're not alone. You do need to realize that. Do not hide away from it. Be honest with yourself and own it. And more than that, talk to someone. Whether it's a close friend that whether it's a family member that you trust, or whether it's something like Andy's Man Club, because you know that you can go there and you get treated with nothing but respect. Just don't be afraid to let it out. Don't hide it away, because hiding it away will just make it worse. As to use it, this is probably going to sound cheesy, but I heard a great line on Only Fools and Horses one time when Del said, "You can't run away, because running away only wears out your shoes." Take that as you will, because that's all it is. You're just going to cause more aggro for yourself. It's hard, it's troublesome, and it's so difficult to be honest with yourself about it, let alone be honest with anybody else. But once you are honest about it, and once you can let somebody else in on it, it changes everything. Changes your life.
I think that's perfect analogy, that one, Tommy, mate, and really sound advice, but I really do appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. So, in your 11 years in the business, Tommy, how do you believe that the professional wrestling industry as a whole can better support its performers' mental well-being?
God, I mean, there are so many ways that it does support. I mean, if I'm 100% honest, I have been lucky to not have to suffer this, but I have heard stories of people who have suffered due to bullying. I mean, we all heard about the speaking out movement in 2020, which was, quite frankly, when that first happened, I was all for it. I was one of the first people to say, thank God people are letting this out there and talking about the abuse that they've suffered. The unfortunate thing about that was then somebody, not just one person, several people hijacked it for their own ends. But the point was that there were abusers in wrestling, and unfortunately, there might still be. Just like in any walk of life, there are people who will try and abuse it to their own ends. And, you know, you need your safeguarding, which every promotion should have. You need to have somebody there, as sort of a, let's say, a human resources kind of person, safeguarding officer who you can go to about these things. And just in the general sense of like what would be the word, family, brotherhood, you know, just get everybody to trust each other and be able to talk to each other. Because if somebody is betraying that brotherhood, then everybody does need to know.
Absolutely, mate. Fantastic. So,
yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt. One of the best people that I heard speak about this was her name's Becca Love, but she used to be called Miss Rebecca at FFW when the whole speaking out movement came about and places started saying, "Oh, we're going to get our safeguarding measures in place." You know, she was one of the first ones to come up and say, "You should have already had it, because that's how I run this business. You should have already had it." And I was like, "Yes." You know, she got so much respect for that lady.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. So, as we start to wind down, Tommy, what role has wrestling played in your overall mental health journey? Would you say that it's been a source of strength? Has it been a challenge, or has it been a bit of both?
It's definitely been a source of strength. The challenges were more physical for me, and just getting out of my own head and being able to step up and believe in myself a bit more. But yeah, it's definitely made me stronger. I've met a lot of people in there that are suffering themselves, and when you hear them talk, it helps me to open up as well. And you know, when I see the support network that so many people have, because like, you know, to name a few names, I'm just going to throw these names out there. There are guys like Cliff Harrison, Remus Kane, and Rob Bagwell. Joe Sedgwick's another one. These are the people that I know I can talk to about anything. Rex Savage, he's another one. He's a very good friend of mine. You know, these are people that I could speak to about anything, and that's really what everybody needs, is to be able to go out there and be able to talk to somebody about these problems. So that's what it's been great for me, is I can actually sit down with them. They trust me with their problems. I can trust them with my problems, and they're willing to listen. And to be honest, I feel like that's what a lot of people do need. I'm not going to say that is the answer to all mental health issues, but so many people do need that. Just somebody who will listen to them. They're just screaming out for somebody to just sit there and listen and let them speak. Because, you know, I know I used a TV phrase earlier on. I'm going to use another one. It was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when he was like reading people's thoughts, and then she spoke to this guy who was wanting to kill himself, and she said, "Look down at all those people, the pretty ones, the popular ones, the not so popular ones. You think it's quiet down there? It's not. It's deafening." And it's true. If you could hear everybody's thoughts, you would go mad, because there are so many. They're screaming. Everybody is just screaming for somebody to listen to them.
Definitely, mate. I definitely agree with that one. So, last couple of questions, Tommy. Try and make it a little bit more light-hearted, just because obviously it can get quite deep, this type of subject. Before I do that, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, guys. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends as well. Make sure you go check out the other episodes. What would you say that you want your legacy to be when you retire, Tommy?
In terms of my fellow wrestlers, I want to be a guy that everybody can work with. You know, that anybody will hear the phrase, "You wrestling Tommy Dillon tonight," and they'll just go, "Oh, great. I like working with Tommy Dillon. I'd love to work him again." In terms of the audience, I'd like them to realize that what I'm actually saying when I'm in that ring is that never, ever think you're too old to live your dreams. Because I started when I was 32. I think somebody could start when I'm 43 now. somebody else I feel could start at 43 and still live that dream. And if I go out of wrestling saying I achieved everything that I wanted to achieve, I won all the titles I wanted to achieve, I was the face of all these companies, I had great matches that will always be remembered, then fantastic. But more than anything, I just want to be the guy that everybody could look at and say, that's the guy I want to work with. That's the guy I want to party with.
Brilliant, mate. What are your aspirations and goals within professional wrestling for the future?
Well, as I said earlier, UKW heavyweight champion. I do want to work in more places and win titles in more places. Obviously, I'm recently started working with Firestar Championship Wrestling, which I've been working with them for a few years as a trainer, but at the same time, I've only just started doing shows with them, and I've got a few shows coming up this year. I do believe I'm going to be facing Charlie Main in a few months, which I'm very much looking forward to. So yeah, I do want to get out there to a few different places. I want to inspire, more young trainees into, what they can become, and push their limits to, the limits of the mind as it is, where they're just worrying about, oh yeah, I can't do that, and I can say to them, there's no. One of my favorite phrases: there's no such word as can't. There is only the things you have done and the things you haven't done yet. And I do believe that is the words to live by.
Absolutely, mate. Could not agree more. Final question, Tommy, before we end the stream. So we all know the match type of War Games.
Yeah.
I want you to pick me your War Games team. It is you and 4 other wrestlers. You cannot pick anyone from your current faction.
Right. So Rex and CJ are out.
Yeah. So it's anyone within UK wrestling.
Anyone within UK wrestling, right?
Yes.
Okay, right. I will pick Remus Kane, Cliff Harrison, Joe Sedgwick, and this last one's a tricky one. It's a toss-up between a few of them, but I'll have to go with George Hunter. I think you stick those guys inside 2 steel cages, you've got nothing but poetry in motion.
What would you name what would you name your War Games team?
Team Tommy. No, no, I would. Oh God, what would I name it? Oh, I used to be so good at coming up with names for teams.
To be honest, I think you gave the perfect name, Poetry in Motion.
Well, yeah, let's go with that. Yeah, I like that.
Fantastic. So there you are, guys. That is the end of today's episode of the Unseen Battles.
Oh no, actually, I've got it. The best, better name for it: the Sons of Fate.
There we go, Sons of Fate. Absolutely fantastic. Like I say, guys, that is the end of today's episode of the Unseen Battles. I want to say a massive thank you to the Wildcard, Mr. Tommy Dillon.
Thank you very much, Jim.
It's absolutely no worries, my friend. So, guys, make sure that you check out myself and Liam's from Magical Wrestling socials in the next couple of weeks, because we are announcing that we will be attending a couple of UKW shows this year. We're not going to be telling you which ones, though, but we are going to be going to Mr. Tommy Dillon's charity event at the beginning of September, I believe you said it's, Tommy?
No, it's November 7th.
November 7th. I do apologize. So make sure you go check that out, guys. Tommy, I always let the guests take us out. So if there's anything you want to plug, if there's anything you want to get off your chest, or anything you just want to say, go for it, my friend.
Okay, right. Ladies and gentlemen, at Pride and Glory, the Instruments of Destruction are going to run the night. You will know. #Umbarekkenbar.
Fantastic. See you later, guys. Make sure to always take care of each other. And as always, it's okay to talk.